Oh, recording in progress. All right. So we are on week 3 today of our Becoming Unlimited series. So back in week 1, that was give away what you want to receive. So that week we talked about money being a symbol for the transfer of energy, how money itself doesn't give us anything. It's what money can do for us. So we talked about the law of circulation, that as you give, so you receive. I shared with you that verse from Malachi, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. So we talked about give away what you want to receive, an outer expression of an inner shift in consciousness. And the practice that I gave you that week was we all got a dollar bill. You remember that? And we wrote on it what it was we wanted to receive. And I challenged you to give away that dollar bill within 24 hours. Who gave away their dollar? Awesome. I've already heard from a couple of you some amazing success stories and miracles that came about from that practice, which is amazing. And then last week, week 2, Reverend Mindy Tucker talked about spirit is our source. How amazing was she? Yes, so good. So she talked about how we know God as principle, and now we're looking at God as substance. And what does that mean? She gave us this analogy as God as Play-Doh, and we are the ones that craft it. Another metaphor she gave us was that God is the music notes, and we are the ones who write the symphony and arrange the music. She talked to us about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, and that a mind once expanded can never go back to its original form. She also gave us some really cool insights into the colors that chickens can see. And she gave us that amazing affirmation from Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore. I am one with the opulence of God, and I give thanks for the prosperity that is mine by divine right. The practice that Mindy Tucker gave you was to get a notebook. And on day 1, you write down $1,000, and you have to find a way on that day to put into circulation $1,000. And then on day 2, you get $2,000 more dollars, and you have to find a way to put $2,000 into circulation, and on and on and on for 21 days. Has anybody started that practice? Awesome. It is amazing. I bet you're on day 7 now. It is amazing to wake up in the morning and visualize having $7,000 to put into circulation, knowing that you're going to get $8,000 the next day, and what that does to your consciousness. So today is week 3, and we are talking about mindset of abundance. Because in order to become unlimited, you must first believe that you are limitless. So Mr. Theodore, my dog, some of you met a couple weeks ago, he has a mindset of abundance. You want to know how I know? Okay, so we have trained Theo, that's what we call him, Theo, to talk using buttons. Has anybody ever seen any of these videos? A couple of you have. Okay, so the way it works is you have a little button, and it sits on the floor on a mat, and you record your voice saying whatever you want into this button. And so what we started with was the word outside, because how many people have dogs that when they need to go outside, they go to the back door, right? So they know to signal to you that they need to go outside. So it's essentially just teaching him, instead of standing at the back door and barking, you hit this button that says outside. So that's what we started with. And so whenever he needs to go out, hits with his paw, the outside button, we let him outside. So we started teaching him other words too. And so we started with all the basics, the important things to a dog. So he knows outside, he knows food, and he knows walk. And then I decided to give him a button that says stick. See, one of the things that Theo likes is these sticks that I get from Costco They're bully sticks, like rawhides. And so he likes these quite a bit. And so I thought, okay, this is motivating enough that he'll learn to press a button and he'll learn this new word. Okay, so here's the thing about teaching your dog to use buttons. In order for them to learn a new word, anytime they press that button, you have to fulfill that request 100% of the time. So when he was learning outside, it didn't matter if he was just out there. It didn't matter if it was 110 degrees outside. It didn't matter if I was in the middle of something and didn't want to get up. If he pressed outside, I got up and I let him outside. Okay, so the stick button. It got to be a bit of a problem. I mean, Theo developed a $10 a day habit with these sticks, okay? So I saw we were getting low on the number of sticks we had. And so I thought, okay, the next time I'm at Costco, I'll pick up some more. But the next time I was at Costco, they didn't have them. Oh no. So I was a little worried about it. And then I give him his last stick and I told him, this is the last one. But then he goes and he presses stick. And so I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, Theo, we're out of sticks. We don't have any more. You see, I had a mindset of lack. But Theo had a mindset of abundance. So he looked at me dead in the eyes and he goes, stick, 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 stick. A mindset of abundance, that dog. Now, I don't know if anyone has ever had a dog that thinks they're the boss of everyone. In my house, that's true. So I said, okay, Theo, you win. I grabbed my keys and I got in my car and I went to Costco. Luckily for me, I don't have to go over the mountain to Prescott. It's just down the road. I went to Costco and wouldn't you know it, they had the sticks back in stock. And not even that, but they were on sale. So I bought him 5 bags. And I got home and showed him, and he was super excited to have his stick. And that is the story of how I became a channel by which Theo manifested his good. So a few things we can learn from Theo. Number 1, be clear about what you want. That's what we worked on in week 1. Number 2, be open to receive because you never know how your good is going to make its way to you. Rev Mindy talked about that last week. And number 3, be persistent, which he was, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So when it comes to cultivating a mindset of abundance, we have to be persistent because think about throughout your life, all of the messages you have received about money, prosperity, and abundance. Things like money doesn't grow on trees. You better eat all your dinner because there's starving kids in Africa or China. That part seems to change. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right? You already have so much, stop asking for more. You're never going to make that much money. You can't count on Social Security. It won't be there when you retire. All of these messages that we receive throughout our life about limit and lack, mindset of lack. That's what our culture gave to us. Think about how persistent those messages are. So just how much more persistent do you have to be in overcoming that message of lack? So be persistent in overcoming that mindset of lack to build a mindset of abundance. This is where we use the power of affirmations. God is my source. I am one with the opulence of God. And I am, what is it? I'll remember. And I give thanks for the prosperity that is mine by divine right. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, says in his book, Prosperity, as we sow in mind, so shall we reap in manifestation. Our work begins in consciousness, overcoming the ingrained patterns, the ingrained beliefs that we have inherited, that have been thrust upon us without our consent. And we have to consciously and persistently work on overcoming those stories of lack. using our affirmations. I love that quote from Charles. What we sow in mind, we reap in manifestation. It's almost like what you focus on expands, right? So we hear that a lot, but this is actually used in business too. In business, we just call it something different. We call it the Hawthorne effect. You see, going as far back as the 1920s, researchers were actually studying that if you observe and focus on something, does that do anything? Does that change it? And what they found was yes. So the Hawthorne effect is used in business because it found that companies that take a certain metric, whether it's number of widgets we sold this month or employee retention or customer satisfaction, if they take a certain metric and they measure it and report it regularly without doing anything else, no new marketing, no new budget allocation, no new training, without doing anything else, just measuring it on a regular basis, the metric gets better. Sales go up, turnover goes down, customer satisfaction increases just by observing it. So this Hawthorne effect holds true in all areas of our life, whether it's counting our calories or the number of minutes we spend exercising, whether it's tracking the amount of quality time we spend with a loved one, or the number of books we've read this year. Just by measuring something on a consistent basis, that measure improves. Powerful, right? The power of our consciousness. All right, I'm going to tell you another story. So around the time that I was experiencing what I now know was my call to ministry, I was working a corporate job. And it was a pretty good job by all accounts. I liked the people that I worked with and I made good money, but I was so unhappy. And I don't know what it was, but have you ever gotten into a certain situation where you're unhappy with it? And so every little thing starts to bother you, right? Like you're nitpicky and every little thing that goes even slightly wrong is like, the end of the world. I was in that mindset with my job. And see, part of it was that I was experiencing my calling. I had other things I wanted to pursue. I felt like this job is just so unfulfilling. This isn't what I'm meant to be doing. And it was a struggle because on the one hand, I kind of needed my job, right? And on the other hand, I was being pulled and nudged and pushed into this other direction. And so I started, as I always do, with the work in consciousness. Is this really an out there problem or is it an in here problem? And so I worked on it and I worked on it and worked on it, looked at my thoughts and looked at my beliefs, asking myself with curiosity, with acceptance, what thought or belief might I be holding on to that is contributing to this undesirable circumstance in my life with this job? And what I found was one particular little thought. My time is not my own. You see, my job was working and supporting a sales team of about a dozen people. And I would go to client meetings with them and do trainings for their clients. And the way it was set up was my sales team had access to my calendar. So when they needed me for a meeting, they would just go on my calendar, find a free spot, and book the meeting. Now, it was a countywide sales team. And this is Arizona, our counties are huge. So there would be mornings where I would have to drive an hour and a half for a 1 hour meeting and then drive 45 minutes in another direction. And then I'd have a 3-hour gap in my schedule where I couldn't go home because home was an hour away, where I'd have to sit at a coffee shop. And so even my downtime in work, I felt like I couldn't pursue these other passions and these other projects that I wanted to be working on. So there's that thought, my time is not my own. But I got curious about that. Is that true? If my time isn't my own, then who does it belong to? So I worked on that in consciousness. And at the same time, my intellectual brain was spinning and spinning and spinning, trying to problem solve, trying to find a solution. What can I do? How can I get out of this job? How can I change things? Intellectually trying to fix it, right? Because that's what our brains do. And I don't know if you've ever been in this situation where you're going around and around and around, and every solution you come up with just isn't going to work for some reason, and it gets frustrating. And then how everything gets frustrating, like I talked about before. Now, have you ever had the experience where after all of that frustration, your mind's spinning around trying to find solutions that aren't there, all of a sudden, all in one moment, it's like an aha, eureka, that light bulb moment, that inspiration, the exact solution you'd been searching for and couldn't find. Has anyone ever had that happen? Yeah. And it feels right and it feels true. Like the second that thought comes into your head, you're like, yes, that's it. And it feels profound in a way, right? Like I've been searching for this and couldn't find it. It feels like this was just given to me, like it came from somewhere else and was just implanted in me. In unity, we call that a divine idea. Charles Fillmore, in that same book, Prosperity, says the possessions of God are not in stocks and bonds, but in the divine possibilities implanted in the mind and soul of every person. Through our minds, ideas are brought into being. Through our souls, God's wealth of love finds its expression. When we talk about prosperity and abundance, I think sometimes that we start to get this image that if I do a couple little spiritual things, money's going to show up in my mailbox. And that happens sometimes, for sure. But the way that Charles Fillmore and the original Unity teachers taught prosperity and abundance was that when we do the work in consciousness, we are open to receive these divine ideas that somehow work out to draw our good to us. Okay, so here is my divine idea. It was brilliant. My problem was this scheduling situation, right? And that when I had free time, I either couldn't work on what I really wanted to be working on, or if I could, I felt guilty about it because I was an employee and it was work hours and I should probably be working, right? So that was my problem. So here's my idea. I could be, instead of an employee, an independent contractor. I could still work for the sales team. My company wouldn't be losing me. Instead of booking time on my calendar, they'd have to email me or call me, and I could set my own schedule and plan my days better so I'm not driving an hour and a half for one meeting. Perfect solution, right? Okay, so I went to my bosses and I sat down with them and I pitched them this brilliant idea. And I was feeling so confident because this idea just felt right. I knew it was going to work. I knew this would solve all of my challenges and my company would be happy too. And so they listened to me and they asked questions and we had such a great discussion about it. And then at the end, they said, no. Nice idea, but no, thank you. Right? Now, if I've learned anything on my spiritual journey, it's the art of patience. So I went home, and as frustrated that I was that didn't work out, I felt that inner knowing that I was right in following this divine idea, and I'm just going to let this sit for a moment. Okay, that meeting with my bosses was late February of 2020. And then, of course, it became March, and COVID came, and everything changed. See, this was a subsidiary of a Fortune 500 company. And so when COVID hit, corporate started getting pressure from their shareholders to reduce costs. And so my company that I worked for got the mandate that they needed to lay off 40% of their staff. So one day my phone rings, and it's those two bosses I had that meeting with. And they said, hey, you remember that idea that you had where you were no longer an employee? Let's go ahead and do that now. Divine ideas. So here's a practice. Get yourself a little notebook that you decorate and make fancy. Maybe go to the store and find one of those nice, like leather bound ones, the ones that smell so good. Get a nice notebook and call it your divine idea notebook. And whenever you get those little ahas, that little spark of inspiration, that little feeling that, like, ooh, how cool would that be? That's the divine idea. Write it down. And watch how much more often those divine ideas find their way into your consciousness when you start paying attention to them. Lynn Twist is an author. She wrote a New York Times bestseller called The Soul of Money. Fantastic book. Not a Unity author, but it's pretty close to Unity. She has this great line where she says, "What you appreciate appreciates." And I love that, because if you think about it, think about the housing market, right? If it's a home that people appreciate and a neighborhood that people appreciate, the home price appreciates, right? If you appreciate someone's special qualities and you start appreciating all of those things that make them unique, doesn't the love that you have for them just fill up, right? Their value in your eyes appreciates the more you appreciate them. Or if a company starts appreciating their employees, all of a sudden that appreciates as well, and they have better performing, happier employees. So appreciates. Yeah.
That's good.
What you appreciate appreciates. So Lynn Twist says, the simple but powerful act we call appreciation expands the freedom, creativity, and ultimately the success we experience. Appreciation becomes a powerful, intentional practice of creating new value through our deliberate attention to the value of what we already have. Sounds a little bit like giving away what you want to receive, right? Eric Butterworth, Unity minister and author, says it a little different. He says, gratitude is not a reactionary emotion, but a causative energy. So appreciation and gratitude isn't just about recognizing what we already have and being thankful for that. It's an energy that causes appreciation. It's a causative energy that draws more of our good to us. So another practice here for you. I know we all know how important it is to be grateful, right? How many of you would say, I know that it's important to be grateful? Okay, good. How many of you have a set time every day where you sit down and do something gratitude related? So taking time out of your day, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and having an actual practice around gratitude. It can be in meditation. It can be in a notebook. I love notebooks. I'm one of those people who like buys all the notebooks and like half of them are empty. And then, so a lot of my practices have to do with notebooks. So whether it's writing down what you're grateful for, sitting in meditation and conjuring up that feeling of gratitude, sitting outside in nature and allowing that appreciation for the natural world to soak into your bones, but having a dedicated time outside of your meditation, outside of your prayer life, in addition to that, having a dedicated time to practice gratitude can increase that causative energy that creates and cultivates your mindset of abundance and draws your good to you. Because when you're constantly noticing all of the wonderful things in your life and in this world and in the people around you, how can that not give you a mindset of abundance? All right, so to cultivate a mindset of abundance, number one, we have to be persistent in our work in consciousness because we have a lot of old stories to overcome. And our practice there is affirmations. We need to take hold of our divine ideas, be the hands and feet of the divine, and put those divine ideas into action and trust. Put it into action and trust. And in all things, be grateful. for it is the causative energy that draws more good to you. And that is your key to believing that you are limitless and becoming unlimited, a mindset of abundance. Let's move into our meditation now. Take a few moments to just lean back against your chair. Take a nice, deep, slow breath in and exhale, slowing it down. Allowing our minds and our bodies to rest, melting into our chair, feeling supported. And remembering to breathe. Our minds are so busy, they get so distracted. And your breath is your anchor. Whenever you find yourself making your to-do list or your grocery list or wondering, wonder where we're going to go to lunch today. Just return that focus, that attention to your breath. And as we relax into this energy of meditation, I want to share with you something that Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote. He calls it a prosperity treatment, and it is a rewrite of Psalm 23. The Lord is my banker, my credit is good. He maketh me to lie down in the consciousness of omnipresent abundance. He giveth me the key to his strong box. He restoreth my faith in his riches. He guideth me in the paths of prosperity for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk in the very shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy silver and thy gold, they secure me. Thou preparest a way for me in the presence of the collector. Thou fillest my wallet with plenty, my measure runneth over. Surely goodness and plenty will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall do business in the name of the Lord forever. So breathe that in. Our work can be fun. Our work can be silly. And the work that you do on your mindset can change your life. Let's take a moment in the silence. Spirit is my source. I am whole. I am worthy. I am abundant. And so it is. Amen.